Guys, welcome back to Barefoot Harvest. We are in for another video about, you guessed it, goats. So actually, I posted a while back on our Instagram and our Facebook page, and I asked you guys what questions you had for me regarding the goats and keeping goats, and so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about everything they need, and hopefully you will feel more prepared in your research about getting goats for your homestead. Come on, let's go to the goat pasture. Excuse me. Hey guys, you want to come chat? Oh. Hello, Nova. Ouch. Alright guys, so I am sitting in the goat pasture now, as you can see, and they are all coming to see what's going on and why I'm in here. They are super, super affectionate and definitely love attention. So anytime I sit in the goat pasture, they surround me, unless they see me coming with supplements or shots, but we'll get to that. So first things first. Our first question is, what do they eat? Well, so while yes, they will explore things with their mouth, they will chew on things, despite all the myths that you hear about goats will eat anything, it's simply not true. Goats will not just eat anything. However, excuse me, would you like to be in this video? Nova, what do you like to eat? What do you like to eat? I'm sure you have heard that goats will eat absolutely anything, even... Thank you, Nova. That was disgusting. Anyway, I'm sure you've heard that goats will eat absolutely anything, including a tin can. Well, I'm here to tell you that is garbage. Pun intended. So, goats do explore things with their mouth, and they will eat things they shouldn't, but they actually are kind of picky when it comes to foods. They have a very specific nutritional need, and it's really good to pay attention to that. You need a goat-specific sweet feed for your does, and if you're going to feed grain to your bucks, you need to make sure that you have ammonium chloride so they don't get urinary crystals built up in their system. It's kind of like a kidney stone, and then that's a major problem. So they like to lick the sweat off of you, which is super yummy, right? But they're just trying to get that salt content. Ouch! No biting! She didn't do it on purpose. There we go. It's okay. You guys. Ow! Don't bite me, Guinevere! What are you doing? I must be extra salty today, huh? Oh, now you're gonna eat my shorts. You guys are making me look stupid. I said you don't eat things you shouldn't eat. Okay, so despite them trying to chew on my shirt and lick the sweat off my skin, I promise guys, they don't actually eat your clothing. They just like to nibble and pull on it and explore. So, next thing after feed is hay. You need a good quality hay, and it needs to be free fed, which means it should be available 24/7. This provides them what's called long stem roughage, and it works for their rumen, which is basically the bacterial balance in their gut and how they digest food. They also chew cud, so they need to do those things in order to remain healthy in their gut. Also, we provide them with electrolytes and probiotics in their water just to give them a good boost, especially when it's hot in summer. The next question we got is, do they really scream all day? Well, it depends on which goat you're asking about. Some of my goats are super quiet and they don't really make much noise at all unless they are super hungry. But as I said, if you have free hay all day long or a good sized pasture, they don't really do that. We do have some needier goats in this herd, and they will scream "ma" all day long at you because they want attention. You're such a good girl. This is one of our boarded does, and she is probably the loudest mouth, so it's funny she's being affectionate now. She knows I'm talking about her. The next question we got is, what kind of goats do we have? Here at Barefoot Harvest, we have 3 different types of goats. We have mini Nubians, full-size Nubians, and Nigerian dwarfs. Interestingly enough, the mini Nubians come from mixing Nigerian dwarf bucks, because they're the smaller ones, with the full-size Nubians, making a Nubian that is smaller, eats less, supposedly. Don't ask Nina, she eats more than any of them. But ideally, you get the milk content of a Nubian, you get the fatty and sweetness in the milk of a Nigerian dwarf, and you get a smaller, more manageable size. They're also a tad bit playful, as far as the ones we have, than our full-size Nubians. Our Nigerian dwarfs, I like to call them the toddlers of the herd. They're very playful and energetic, and the Nubians are definitely more so the very regal, calm disposition, definitely an easy goat to keep. Our next question was, how much space do you need for goats? And this is definitely an answer that is depending on quite a few things. It depends on how much you want to feed them. It depends on how much you want to spend on hay. It depends on if you can rotate your pastures to avoid parasite problems. For us, we have a very, very oversized, large pasture for them. They definitely keep it low in most areas, but you can tell where they don't get to all of it and it starts to grow up a little bit. But I would say our pasture is probably half an acre-ish, maybe a little bit more. We keep 2 full-grown adult does, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 kids right now, and this pasture is definitely going to be able to sustain all of them. A good sign that your pasture is not big enough is when it goes to dirt and you can't keep it green. If that's the case, hopefully you have enough room to expand your fencing, and that comes to our next question. What does it take to keep them? All right, in order to keep our goats where we want them, let's talk fencing. As much as you don't want to do electric fencing, it's an absolute must with goats. We have metal no-step fencing on probably 5 to 6 foot posts. So the fence itself is probably around 5 feet, maybe a little shorter. And that only works for us because we also have bare electric wires across the top and the bottom. They're safe, they're not going to harm the goat, but it will give them a little bit of a shock if they come in contact with it, which trains them to not push on the fencing. So as much as it kind of stinks to have electric fencing, it's definitely an investment, and it's sad when they get hit with it. But what's even more sad is if your goats are escaping and getting into plants that could kill them, or getting out of your yard and attacked by loose dogs, those type of things. So you definitely need to protect your goats despite them getting a little shock here and there. And honestly, once they learn the wire is there, they tend to avoid it. They don't hit it a lot once they're trained to it. So it's not a huge concern that they're getting shocked constantly. Let's go over the daily, weekly, monthly chores routine, what it takes as far as hard work to keep your goats. So daily, I come out every single morning and I make sure that the hay feeder is stacked with fresh hay, and they also get their goat-specific sweet feed, and we like to do a topping of natural powdered wormers, just to kind of keep a control on the parasites. If you guys have been following us long enough, you know that we had a big issue with parasites this summer because of how wet it stays. And that seems to be keeping things at bay for now. Would you guys just go somewhere? So every day I also make sure that their water is clean and clear. It doesn't have mosquito larvae in it, that type of thing. And the way we like to keep the mosquitoes out is either A, goldfish, depending on how big your troughs are, or B, having your water trough under a spigot and leaving it on just enough that it has a slow drip, and mosquitoes don't like to lay their eggs in it because it's moving. So additionally, they're fighting back there. Additionally, we like to put electrolytes, pre and probiotics in the water, and every 2 weeks, this is gonna sound really weird, stay with me, I promise it's good. Every 2 weeks, we put On Guard laundry soap in their water. Let me explain why, okay? Hello. So first off, we like to do things as holistically as possible, right? We like to keep things as natural as possible, and worming is really hard. Excuse me, Delilah. Oh my gosh. Really, Cordelia? Ouch, that hurts. We're not doing goat yoga right now. You guys are... And your like farm supply wormers, they're really harsh on their body, and goats easily become resistant to those wormers. So you don't want to just worm to worm, and you don't want to do it so frequently that they become resistant or the worms become resistant, and then your goat has all sorts of issues because they're very sensitive to parasites. Oh yeah. So, the way the On Guard works is not only does it have multiple essential oils in it that are not friendly to parasites, but it also contains a safe surfactant that kind of like slicks their stomach and intestinal linings so the parasites can't really grab hold and live there and have happy days, right? So they just kind of get flushed out. So, if you're not having a huge parasitic problem, it's okay to do this for 3 days. It is the night before, the night of, and the night after a full moon. And the reason, again, this sounds crazy, but it's because parasites are more active around a full moon, and so they'll already be moving around. And if that belly lining is slick, then you just, hello. So if you're having a parasite problem, or a maple problem, excuse me, you can't stand there. Move. Excuse me. Maple! So if you are having a really heavy parasitic problem, then you can do this every 2 weeks until you kind of get it under control. You're not going to harm them. This is completely safe. You can also use the On Guard foaming hand wash. I will link both of these. They are a doTERRA product, full stop, like not trying to rep it or anything, but I do have links for them. They do work. You can also use a few other type of surfactants, but I just really feel a lot safer with the On Guard stuff, as well as having the essential oil blend in it to also help with these parasites. Okay. So as well as worms, goats also deal with something as kids usually, but they can get it as an adult if they're not feeling well or if they have a parasitic load, but they can deal with coccidia. And I call this the kid killer. A lot of people do because this is what Nigel died from. If you guys haven't been following us long enough, the first buckling we brought home, I'm not going to say much, but basically we were told very poor information and bought from someone who called themselves a breeder, and they sold us a goat way too early, weaned him way too early, and he got sick with coccidia. They basically blamed us and told us that it was our fault, it was whatever feed he was on, and it was, basically, sorry about your luck, like, our goats are healthy, so... Anyway, coccidia is what took Nigel from us, and I had very limited knowledge at the time, and we did our best. I mean, I researched like crazy when he got sick, but coccidia is so dangerous to them. Even with the treatment, I was just too late. So, in order to prevent coccidia, you can do meds. There are meds that you can buy, and some of those are like toltrazuril, or there's another one called like Albin or something like that, Sulfamed. And you can also give them oak leaves and pine needles, and both of those have natural things within them. Like oak leaves have tannins that naturally kill off cocci eggs, and so it's great to have those things in your pasture. We're super blessed, so we would come out here and just pick all the leaves, and it's also great once they get it, you can pull oak leaves for them to help them with that parasitic load. And we actually successfully treated the entire herd, and no one died once we learned more about it. So, back to chores. So, probably every few weeks to a month, we do a complete haul out of stuff in the barn. We like to do deep litter method, but they honestly, they poop and they pee so much that even with deep litter, it can get mucky fast. In rainy season, you don't want a mucky barn that has like wet and like, it's just a breeding ground for parasites underneath. So we do pine shavings. You can also do the like pine horse pellets, whichever one you prefer. I don't prefer shoveling out the weight of pine pellets, so we do pine shavings, and that is great because goats also give you free gold for your garden. They have cold manure, which means you can put it right on the garden without waiting. And it is like gold to plants. So what we do is we just scoop out the barn once a month-ish or as needed, and we dump it right in the garden, and our plants love us for it. You can also do this for your trees, for your, whatever plants. So a few more things I'm just going to add to this video that weren't asked but I think are super important is, should you keep bucks? This is totally a personal choice between studding them out, like buying straws of semen, or finding someone local to you that has bucks for a stud fee, or keeping your own bucks. Bucks get such a bad rap on the internet. Even within goat groups, people love them or hate them. We are someone who loves them. I think that people over-dramatize the smell. I do think some people get really unlucky with aggressive bucks, but we have 4. 2 of them are full grown and 2 of them are kids still, and we have never seen a single ounce of aggression from our adult bucks. They are so loving and so sweet, so affectionate. This is Gideon. He's one of our boarded goats, and he is so curious and adorable and loving. But we have never ever experienced aggression, and we are coming into like rutting season, which is when they're supposed to be the worst. So they are a little stinkier than normal, but honestly guys, maybe I just like the barnyard smell, but to me it just smells like a barnyard. It's not as repulsive as everybody makes it seem. So if you can afford to feed bucks, which they do eat more, they are much bigger than your does, then my vote is to keep them. But when you're buying a herd sire, make sure you really speak extensively to your breeder about her herd personality. Her doe and sire to your possible buckling. Talk about the personalities, talk about aggression, really get a feel. See if you can visit the farm, things like that. Really do your research and make sure you're buying from a breeder who isn't breeding down aggression in their lines. We love our bucks so much. I actually have a bit of a soft spot for them if you don't know. I think you can kind of tell if you've been following us long enough, but my vote is definitely to keep a buck if you have the means to keep them contained. They do need electric wire, fencing, because they will escape and try to breed your does when you don't want them to be bred. So it's just something you have to take extra precautions about. You have to be a little bit more careful and wise, knowing that they're an animal, knowing that they do have hormones, and you just have to be careful and aware. Come here, buddy. So Hawthorne was just wormed recently. Well, actually they both were, because he got a little wormy when it was so wet out here. It has dried out recently, but it was so bad that there was... What are you doing? So that is how a buck gets extra smells. They lift their top lip. What are you doing? You're so funny. But anyway, he got a little wormy over the summer when there was like literal rivers through the pasture. It just stayed so wet. So he lost a little bit of weight, but he's gaining it back now that we've dewormed him. And they just take a little bit of extra knowledge as far as what they can eat, because you want to avoid those urinary calculi like I told you about earlier. Hey Hawthorne, you're such a good boy. Oh, I'm sorry. So the last question we got was, are goats a good animal to have on the homestead for a beginner, or are they more for the experienced homesteader? Well, as you guys know, they were like our first major animal that we got for our farm right when we moved in, and I did not know very much. I did have a buck when I was a teenager, and my mom made me get rid of him because he was quite bucky. He actually was a little bit aggressive and she got worried about it, so he went to a farm. But that was my only experience with goats. So we did start this with little to no experience really. And again, we did lose one kid in the very beginning, but if I was to go on about all the details, I really don't count that one as our fault. Anyways, I do think that you should research a ton before you buy them, but I don't discourage someone who's just starting out on a homestead from buying goats. They're pretty easy keepers once you have the correct knowledge. And honestly, we're all learning as we go, and that's a beautiful thing. So, get yourself some goats after you do lots of research. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you will subscribe and come back for more information. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for sharing life with us. We'll see you next time.